Good afternoon and welcome to today's session of the Beginning Farmer and Rancher Lunchtime Learning webinar series. I want to acknowledge the support of the USDA through the USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture and the Beginning Farmer Rancher Development Program for their support of this webinar series. Today, we are going to hear from Maddie Elwine, who is the Oklahoma State Outreach Coordinator with the Farm Service Agency. And we'll also hear from Cleon Bradford, who is the Oklahoma Beginning Farmer and Rancher State Program Coordinator with the Natural Resource Conservation Service. With that, I'll turn it over to Maddie Elwine, and we'll hear from her about Farm Service Agency.
Good afternoon, everybody. I almost said morning, but I guess I could have just been on the cusp. As Josh mentioned, my name is Maddie Elwine. I'm the State Outreach and Communications Coordinator for the Oklahoma Farm Service Agency. The Oklahoma Farm, oh, there we go. Sorry. So a lot of people might be familiar with USDA service centers when you drive down through your small towns and around town and stuff like that. With that, you'll find both FSA and NRCS, or just NRCS, but that's where you can find us, is at the USDA service centers. Now, what the Farm Service Agency does is we provide disaster assistance, safety net programs, farm loans, conservation programs, and other ad hoc programs that come up as different disasters come up, or different pandemics or anything. As things get chaotic, FSA tends to be there to kind of help producers continue to produce. I like to call us the sustainability leg. So whenever you think of a farming operation and you think of government impact and you think of how can our farm be more sustainable, typically you're going to find your FSA programs in that realm. It's whatever to help make that dollar stretch as far as possible, or it's to, if you lose calves for some reason, it's kind of to help compensate in order to help get you by to get to the next year. We have two sectors of FSA, and I'll explain them both a little bit more thoroughly, but we have our farm loan programs, which I'll just call FLP, or we also have our farm programs. So we have at least 31 various programs at different times that aid livestock and crop producers. This goes all the way down to the specialty crop producers, all the way up to our conventional row crop producers as well. With our farm loans, we have recently been rebranded as Lender of First Opportunity. So we'll go over what that means a little bit, but if you guys are unfamiliar with FSA, I'm excited to let you guys know what we are all about. And if you guys are familiar with FSA, I hope you guys learn a little bit more and we can see what else we can help you guys through. So first things first, obtaining a farm number. This is always your first step with the Farm Service Agency. This is where it sounds really daunting. You'll hear it thrown around all the time. However, it's really simple. I always recommend that you make an appointment with your local county office. This will just ensure that your county office is prepared. They have all of your papers set aside, and you can get in and out of the door as quickly as possible. Although an appointment is not required, I do recommend it. I also recommend that you prepare your documents. When you make your appointment, it's always smart to ask your county office exactly what they need in order to get you signed up. However, it's pretty simple. We just ask for a deed, a lease agreement, or other legal proof of operation. In some circumstances, if you guys have a verbal agreement, say I have a verbal agreement with my father to rent 100 acres or whatever, I can have him sign an FSA form and I will sign an FSA form. So even something as limited as a verbal agreement is a lease that we can accept. I also recommend that you guys bring a check or a void check or a bank account information. This way we can just get you all set up ready for your direct deposit, as well as inventory and production records. This is optional if you guys do not have any production at this time. It's not required. This is just a great way to kind of get started. I also recommend that you guys go in there with a kind of a vision. What is your 1-year plan, 3-year plan, 10-year plan even with your operation? As I mentioned, we have 31 different programs. That's a lot to discuss, and not every one of those programs will apply to you. So if you go in and you say, hey, I'm really interested in honeybees, we'll only tell you about our honeybee programs. But if you say, I'm a cow-calf producer and that's all I want to do is just raise seed stock and cow-calves, then we'll help you through with our different programs on that front as well. With the farm number, it's important to note that this is not the same as an Oklahoma tax ID number or a tax exemption number. So with your agricultural tax exemption, this is not the same. However, it can be used to obtain your tax exemption. It's just they create a line in your brain on taxes and FSA because they're not the exact same. While you're there, it's kind of important that you try and schedule with both FSA and NRCS because there may be some NRCS programs that they can discuss with you later on. Cleon will get into that later, but if you do back to back, then you're in and out. However, obtaining your farm number is your first step with FSA and NRCS. Acreage reporting. This is technically one of our programs. However, it's not necessarily a program that you get paid on. This is just timely filing a crop report in order to be eligible for a variety of programs. We do have various acreage reporting deadlines across or in every county throughout the year. So depending on what crops you have, I recommend you contact your county office and say, hey, when is acreage reports for alfalfa due? And they'll let you know, and then we can ensure that you guys are eligible for programs when they come up. If you do not have an acreage reported by the program sign up, however, you have been a producer for X amount of time, you are eligible to late file an acreage report for a fee of either $31 or $47, depending on the crop, depending on the crop. But that's something way down the road, and your county office will help hold your hand through that. We do also ask if, say, there's a drought or a flood, and you guys are not able to plant, your prevented planting must be reported as well. So make sure you guys are aware of whenever those deadlines are and just kind of put them on your calendar for the crops that are important to you and go from there. Agricultural risk coverage and price loss coverage is a program that we have going on right now. This deadline is April 15th. This is an enrollment program where you get to enroll your seed grains or cereal grains for this one. So if you're not a cereal grain producer, you can zone out for a quick second while I jump into this one. And if you are, just be aware that this program is deadline is April 15th. What this program does is it kind of supports the producer when grain prices, as we all know, are not super favorable, and it can help support the producer with that as well. So the ARC is it's a kind of a sister program. ARC is a program with income support program that provides payments when the actual crop revenue declines below a level. And PLC is a program that provides income support payments when the effective price falls below a reference price. So ARC is technically kind of with yield related with your revenue, and then PLC is kind of a price on what the price is going to do in the market. Again, your county office can explain this all to you on a situational basis. But this is a program that is available for producers that produce cereal grains. Livestock disaster programs. In the world of in the world of FSA, cattle, bison, honeybees, equine, and even cattle for roping or show steers or anything of that sort are considered livestock. So the livestock indemnity program, this is a program if there's a mass casualty event for your cattle, you are eligible to be for compensation if it was an eligible weather event. This is one of those programs that I always recommend you guys have accurate records, and OSU has fantastic resources as well as different technical centers to help you create really strong records in order to help maintain eligibility for this program. A lot of the stuff that I'm going to be discussing today is how your record keeping can help you be successful with FSA. Because we do have a lot of programs, however, if your records are not up to date, then it might be a little bit more difficult for us to help you become eligible for this program. The way that livestock indemnity program works is it's in excess of normal mortality. which means, as morbid as it sounds, if you have a calf die, just because calves die, if you take a picture of it, send it to your FSA office within 30 days, then you can, or excuse me, within 60 days, the photo is your verifiable evidence, and that can help you with your notice of loss. That means if, say, you have 10 cows is the normal mortality rate, and in a natural disaster event, you had 9 cows die. However, throughout the year, you had 10 cows already die. You could get paid on all 9 of those cows that were deceased during the lightning storm. If there's any questions on that, I'm happy to continue to dive into that, but I think that's as far as we'll go for now. The deadline for this program is always 90 days after the first of the calendar year, so it's always March 1st or March 3rd or February 28th if it's a leap year. 60 days, excuse me. The Livestock Forage Disaster Program. This is LFP. This is kind of FSA's claim to fame recently. This is if there's an eligible drought that's reflected from the U.S. Drought Monitor that for grazing losses that you can be eligible for livestock that have been that are suffering grazing losses. So if there's a drought or you think it's really dry outside, I do recommend that you contact your county office and say, hey, have we qualified yet? And they will let you know. Our county offices do always send a text message as soon as our counties trigger for these events or for these programs. And so I do recommend that you guys sign up through GovDelivery or through farmers.gov, which is email or which is a link that Josh shared for you guys to learn more about this program and your guys' eligibility as it occurs. They did just recently change the program deadline for this, and it will also line up with the livestock indemnity program. So it will be March 1st unless it falls on a Saturday or Sunday. The Emergency Livestock Assistance Program for honeybees and farm-raised fish. This is a very large program with a whole lot to it. If it doesn't follow on, if it's a disaster and it doesn't land under LIP, or it's a problem and it doesn't land under LFP, ELAP will most likely fill in the gaps. If you have a loss due to an adverse event on livestock feed, for instance, say you had to buy more feed than normal, or you had feed transportation costs in excess of normal, or if, for instance, there was a fire and you lost all of the feed that you had purchased and it all poof up in the fire, this is a program that can help you guys. So just kind of keep this one in mind. I'm not going to dive in too deep on this one because it is a case-by-case basis on eligibility. However, just keep it in the back of your mind on if you think that your livestock might be covered under this program. This is also eligible for honeybees, so if there is a drought and you have to buy sugar for your honeybees, you may be compensated. If you have colonies die, you may be compensated for that as well through ELAP. This just kind of touches base on losses of colonies or eligible honeybees. And then this is eligible grazing losses, feed losses, and transportation losses regarding ELAP. Again, this one is also triggered by the U.S. Drought Monitor. And so keep a tab on that and just kind of look. If you click your county, there's a tab on U.S. Drought Monitor that you can click your county on and ask it if it's if your county is qualified for FSA programs, and it will tell you yes or no. So it's a really handy site to keep up with as well. Now, this is our non-insured crop assistance program. This is best for all non-insurable crops. This can be anything from crops grown for food or planted for livestock consumption. So that's alfalfa, but that's also pumpkins, strawberries, microgreens, anything under the moon and stars that is not typically insured through the risk management agency is eligible for this program. 13 counties are not eligible for this program for pecans. So I do recommend if you are in a county office or if you grow pecans, ask your county office if RMA insurance is available for that crop. And if it is not, then you are eligible for the non-insured crop assistance program. This is the only program that FSA requires you to buy into. It's a typical insurance program. However, if you are socially disadvantaged there is a waiver that you can complete in order to get free basic coverage, and then you can receive buy-up coverage from that. Again, this just kind of covers what type of type of loss this covers. It is pretty basic. It's if you know insurance, you kind of know this program, and then you'll also know if your crops are eligible. Crops within hoop houses are eligible for this program as long as they meet certain standards and specifications. This is a few more programs I'm just going to touch base on quickly. The Emergency Conservation Program. This provides emergency funding and technical assistance for farmers and ranchers in the event of a natural disaster. So if there is a flood and it wipes out your entire fence, there's cost share assistance available with FSA to help your fence, and we can't control the weather. So this is just kind of help you guys continue to operate regardless of natural disasters that come through. Out in Western Oklahoma right now, this is really popular due to the wildfires, and we're also still doing it due to tornadoes previously. So if you receive any damage due to a natural disaster, wildfire, flood, or tornado, always call your FSA office and ask them about this program and see how it can benefit you. The Conservation Reserve Program, this is really popular out west as well because it's for highly erodible lands in environmentally sensitive lands. We just kind of pay you guys not to farm it and to keep it covered and preserved. There is another caveat to this one as well. You can do the CRP grassland program, and you can continue to graze it or hay it within FSA standards. Now, a new program that a lot of people might be hearing about is the Emergency Commodity Assistance Program. It made its headlines out on News 9 last week, and just kind of discussed how there's $230 million available for Oklahoma producers specifically regarding the Commodity Assistance Program. Now, this is not necessarily for a producer that's thinking that they want to get into farming next year. This is for a producer that's probably within the last 5 years of production. And so technically, by definition, that would still be a beginning farmer and rancher. This provides economic assistance for crops or payments for eligible agricultural commodities, which are cereal grains, or other row crops as well. So anything that you think is just a typical row crop is probably covered underneath this program. This is a wrap up, quote unquote, wrap up of COVID. We're still talking about it 5 years later, but there were really high rising input costs in the year of 2024, and this is just to help compensate and offset that. Any eligible producer has already received a pre-filled application in the mail. If you are a wheat crop producer and you receive this application in the mail, please schedule an appointment with your county office so they can go over a couple things with you, as there are just a few things that we have had to change manually, and we just need your assistance with. So if you are a wheat crop producer and you might be eligible for this program, please go into your county office. County committee nominations. I'm just going to fly through this really quickly so you guys are aware of it. FSA is managed by a county committee. Each county office has 3 to 5 members that serve on this county committee to help ensure that the programs that are implemented or that are created and policy that's created by Washington, D.C. is implemented in a real way on the county office level. So this nomination period is from June 15th to beginning of August. So if you are interested in running on your county committee, I recommend that you talk to your county office and see how you can get involved. Farm loan programs. This is also one of our claim to fames. We offer farm loans up to $600,000 for ownership loans and $400,000 for operating loans. We also offer micro loans, and that's $50,000 as well. We can do guaranteed loans partnering with a bank, and we can also do joint financing, which is $600,000 from FSA, and then you can get additional money from a bank as well, and we can partner. Our term limits are a little bit different than a traditional bank. We have a term limit up to 40 years, and our interest rates are 5.75%. In the group chat, or excuse me, in the chat box, Josh also shared the farmers.gov, and on there you can go to your loan discovery tool. Whatever your interests are, you can play with that, and it will help you do some drop down menus in order to find your perfect loan for your perfect situation. Operating loans as well. This is a maximum of $400,000 and a micro loan of $50,000. We do offer emergency loans. Those are on a case-by-case basis, and those must be declared. So if you are interested in an emergency loan, I recommend you contact your current farm loan office, and they'll let you know if your county is specifically eligible for that program. Our youth loans, this is where I'm going to wrap it up. We do have operating loans available for youth. So if you have a kid that wants to help you and wants to start their own cow-calf operation side by side with you guys as well, or if you have a kid that wants to do some cut flowers or maybe even some produce and go to the farmer's market, this is a great loan opportunity for them. It is a loan maximum of $10,000 to eligible individuals to finance agricultural related projects. This can go to anything that is not land, essentially. If you're looking to buy fence for your goats or goats, period, or if you're looking to buy feed for your cattle, this is a program that is possible for them. The youth must work with 4-H, FFA, or a tribal organization in order to be eligible, and they are youth for the ages of 10 to 18 years old, and it should be paid off by 20 years of age. If anybody has any questions, this is my information. You guys are more than welcome to reach out to me at any time. I'm happy to send you this in email, or I'm also happy to talk over your specific situations and see what kinds of programs might be applicable to you as well. I know this was really high level and this was a lot of information. However, I wanted you guys to be aware of some programs that we have available. So when you do go to your county office, you guys are able to ask a couple specific questions in order to help guide you guys to what you need and what you want. I'll be here the whole time, so if we have any questions, we can always get to those. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Maddie. That was excellent. Please, folks, do put any questions you have in the chat. Like Maddie said, she'll stay with us the whole time. So any FSA related questions that come to mind, please don't be shy. You can put those in the chat and we'll get to those in just a little bit. All
right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cleon Bradford, and I am the outreach coordinator for Oklahoma NRCS. I am also the outreach coordinator for Beginning Farmers. And so I'm glad to be with you all this afternoon. I'm going to kind of give a high-level overview of our services when it comes to natural resources conservation service. I will say that we're located in all 77 counties here in Oklahoma. So if you are a producer here in this state, you have a NRCS office in your county. And not every office or every county will have both, FSA and NRCS present, but I can say that NRCS, we have a presence in every county. And throughout our, this presentation, just kind of really basic, just kind of really showing what our services are. And so at the end of it, my goal is that you can kind of have some examples of what it is, what it's like to receive some service, whether it's through our conservation programs or just basic conservation technical assistance through the development of a conservation plan. And so just kind of want to show some real life examples of how those services can be provided. All right, so one of the, NRCS services, one of the things, there's three things that we offer through, at the field office level. And that's just, what we call conservation technical assistance. That's something that is really basic, and we're going to talk about that and give some examples of that as we go throughout this presentation. The other part of the core of what we offer as an agency is the development of conservation plans. And in that conservation plan, there's some things, some objectives that's geared toward working with, with that producer on helping them meet their objectives. And once we develop a conservation plan, and we've identified the objectives and we identified the resource concerns, we have some conservation financial assistance programs that will help you with implementing those conservation practices that will help you meet your objectives. And so conservation technical assistance, when we think about that, when a producer comes in the office and, they're needing some assistance with interpreting a soil test, finding out at what point should, fertilizer be applied to help improve their overall objective of whether or not it's, forage production or growing crops in their garden or in a crop field on a larger scale. We provide this technical assistance to producers both in the rural America and also in these urban communities. There's a growing interest in producers in the urban areas, with growing fresh produce. And so conservation technical assistance is something that we really see being requested and needed in these urban areas. When we think about, plant identification, when a producer is wanting to plan their year out and based on the previous years, they're wanting to address some concerns that they've had with the undesirable plants growing in their fields, whether it's in their crop fields or in their pastures. Sometimes there's a need just for an NRCS representative to come out and evaluate and determine what type of plants are growing that's causing a concern. And so we provide that assistance to identify what those species are. And then, based on those species that are there, we utilize, fact sheets from the Oklahoma State University to provide some guidance on recommendations on what to apply to help eradicate those undesirable plants that's disrupting their production. And, as a producer grazing livestock, there's always it's always important to manage your forage. And so as producers come in, they have ideas on, what they're wanting to do. They're wanting to improve their grazing system, and they may want to know where to place the fence to allow them to better distribute the livestock for better grazing. And when they do that, there's a need for livestock water. You have to have water to provide those livestock. And so just knowing where those placements are and that'll best serve that area, we provide those recommendations. And then once we do that, there's always a need for design engineering to help with knowing what to do, how to do it, to what extent. And so we provide that service through our engineering staff to help design those engineering structural type practices. And that's just kind of the basic understanding of what it would be to receive some conservation technical assistance as a current producer or beginning. It really doesn't matter, but as a beginning producer, you need to be aware. It's important that you're aware of these resources and that's available, the services. And all of this is free of charge. And so it's your tax dollars. I tell people it's your tax dollars at work. And so so conservation plan, this is kind of, one of the key things that when you come into our office and we provide that technical assistance, our goal with our customers is always to try to get to the development of a conservation plan that identifies the objectives of that producer. We want to be able to work with that producer, develop that conservation plan based on their goals, how they see their future, and we try to develop that plan on how to better manage those natural resources that are out there to help them meet their objective, their goals. And when we think about natural resources concerns, those are, that's, we call it SWAPA, soil, water, air, plants, and animals. Those are the natural resources out there that we're going to be working with to identify what are the concerns there. How can we manage those resources? How can we address some concerns that you're having with those resources that's hindering you from meeting your objective? And so that's what that conservation plan is going to be all about. And it's your plan, it's your goals, it's for you, and so it's going to be led by you as the producer. And our goal is to provide you the service to help you with getting there with this conservation plan. And so identifying resource concerns, we always, soil erosion is a big one. And those are things that when we come out there and conduct a field visit, whether it's with the district conservationist, the soil conservationist, or the soil conservation technician, the staff there, they're going to be looking and identifying concerns like soil erosion. If you're in a crop field setting, I mean, you've probably seen some conventional tillage on some fields that have caused some erosion. And so our goal with addressing those issues is to plan some conservation practice, whether it's no-till, minimum till, cover crops, thinking in terms of keeping something growing year round, keeping the soil covered, keeping that armor, protecting the soil from eroding. Those are some conservation practices that we would be looking at to address a concern such as this. And here, a resource concern with inadequate livestock water. These are common in Oklahoma, and with this, you would say long before this pond got to this shallow, we would have determined that the water quality is very poor. And so, as a producer, having these types of concerns, these are considered what we call, resource concerns, having inadequate livestock water, poor water quality. And so we would plan conservation practices to address these types of concerns. And I'm going to show you some more examples of how we would address those concerns. Here, here in Oklahoma, when we think about resource concerns, ponds going dry during these extreme droughts conditions. And so here in Oklahoma, this happens, more often than usual. And, I try to tell producers, if you see this happening, you have a concern. These ponds right now, this time of year in the spring, these ponds will look adequate. And so, but if you notice that it went dry, it's probably going to go dry again. And so it's important that you think ahead, plan ahead. And when we're out there assessing your property, and at this time of year, we may not recognize that pond was dry in the previous year because it's obviously full of water now. But if you, as a producer, can show that it was dry, that would be a resource concern that we would want to plan to address in that conservation plan. And here's some, conservation practices that we plan to address those types of resource concerns when it comes to inadequate livestock water. And in this presentation, I'm kind of focusing on the water because that's just such a big concern for a lot of producers here lately with the recent droughts that we've had. But installing watering facility using tire tanks is common. And you can see there's an option to put these things in the fence row. When we look at developing that conservation plan, we're looking at placement. How can we better invest? What's more feasible, allow you return on your investment with the placement of the livestock water. And so in these cases, in most cases, we always try to plant them in the fence row where we're in a rotational system where you can rotate cattle on both sides using the same water source. And that helps reduce the footprint on where these water sources need to be located, making it more feasible to implement. And here's an example of conservation, practice for us installing a pipeline to transport that livestock water. And so if you're using a water tap or an existing well or a new well, you have to be able to get that water to the location where it's needed. And so we plan those water pipelines to be installed to help get that water distributed in the places to where it allows you to better manage your forage. And that's what we're always looking for. How do we place the water in the locations where it's feasible to meet the objective and ideally being in a location where it serves more than one field when we're looking at watering facilities. And here's an example of where we're drilling wells, install the well, the water well, and also the watering facility, and just kind of showing the combination of how that works. And so just a good example of the implementation addressing inadequate livestock water. And these are practices that would be planned in your plan. And it's something that is very, very important here in the state of Oklahoma these days. So with that, those were some conservation practices, some examples there. But we have our conservation program that provides financial assistance to implement these conservation practices. And there's 4 major programs, but the one program that has been around the longest is going to be our EQIP program. It's the Environmental Quality Incentive Program geared toward fixing problems. And so we're going to kind of briefly give an overview of these programs and how they can assist you with implementing those conservation practices. The Environmental Quality Incentive Program, we kind of view it as our fix-it program. If you've got concerns out there, problems like inadequate water, the examples I've just given you, those are programs or those are conservation practices that could be we can assist with financially to help with the cost. And our cost is based upon an average cost of a regional area. We don't really pay 100% of the cost. It's called financial assistance, and so we're just assisting with the cost. And so we pay a flat rate when it comes down to providing financial assistance to implementing practices, whether it's a pond or a livestock watering facility, water well. And here is kind of some examples of what those practices are, and that I've mentioned already in our presentation. But cross fencing is a big one for grazing distribution, brush management. When it comes to managing those eastern red cedars, and also those other invasive species such as blackberries. They tend to take over where areas that are just laid fallow. You have a lot of undesirable plants, woody plants that will take over, and just a plethora of, there's just lots of things that'll need to be addressed when it comes to addressing resource concerns on the land. We like to, grass planting for erosion control. That's a big one. When we look at, fields that are cropped and the producer wants to, reduce the erosion, hold the soil together more in the long term, and so decide to plant to a permanent forage. We do provide assistance to do that, as well as many other conservation practices. It's pretty broad. There's nothing, I like to tell people as producers, there's probably nothing we can, there's, I hate, we provide assistance on mostly everything out there that's going to be considered a resource concern to managing those natural resources. So it's a big opportunity with our EQIP program, Environmental Quality Incentive Program. It provides a lot of help. So And the other one, the big one, is the Conservation Stewardship Program. You know, it's a program geared toward rewarding producers for doing conservation, being good stewards of the land. And so, we're applying conservation practices, but we're thinking of it as in terms of rewarding you for the current management on your operation, but you have to be willing to take your operation to an even higher level of management. And that program, or this program, encourages that producer to take it to a higher level of management. And this program is for 5 years. It's a 5-year agreement between the landowner and NRCS. The conservation practices can be planned on a broad, all land uses. I mean, whether it's a farmstead, your crop field, which, think of a garden, it's a crop field as well. Rangeland, pasture consisting of those introduced species. It's very broad as to the land that it will provide that incentive for being a good steward of the land. And so you would receive a payment each year around the October, November time frame. That's when we normally start to make the payments for those producers who meet the criteria, who implement the enhancements that are planned in their contracts. But there's an application process. You have to be willing to allow your operation to be fully assessed, but you don't have to include all of your land, but we have to recognize and document your entire operation. But you do have a choice. And some of this in this PowerPoint, I think there's been some changes on some of the criteria, but the general understanding of the program is that it is geared toward providing you an annual payment each year for 5 years for being a good steward of the land by managing your current benchmark at your current benchmark level, but also willing to take on and implement some additional conservation practices that take it to an even higher level of management. And so there's generally fund pools reserved for those social disadvantaged and the beginning farmers. And so keep that in mind as well. And then we have our agriculture conservation easement program, the wetland reserve easement program. That program is geared toward helping with reestablishing some of those existing wetlands or wetland that has been manipulated through crop production in these areas. Who qualify the most, who make the best application, are those who have been farmed, and but you can see indications of how they were drained to allow the water to drain off so they can farm those fields. And so those areas are ideal for being good applicants for our wetland reserve easement program. And then we have the agricultural land easement, and those are fields that we want to keep out of, from being developed, and keeping those lands in ag production or whatever. And so those are two of the different types of easement programs that we have. And just kind of breaking it down here, the Wetland Reserve Easement Program is to restore, protect, and enhance wetland on eligible lands. And again, those lands are going to be ideally those cropland fields that have been manipulated so that they can be farmed. But if you're willing to take those acres out of production and allow them to go back to their natural state, with the development of a wetland, we can definitely do that as well. And so, and then on the agricultural land easement is to protect agricultural use, viable related conservation values of eligible land by limiting non-agricultural uses. Again, keeping those areas from those lands from being developed, keeping them in ag. production. The types of easements on these with this easement programs is, you know, the permanent, and you can do a 30-year. You know, there's just different levels. You know, if you know, depending on how you want to commit. You know, most people you know, I've seen it all. I mean, you know, there's most of my experience has been with the permanent and the 30-year easements as well. So, but those are easements that tend to work out really good because you, as the producer, you still have control of the property, but you just limit it as to what you can do once you enter one of these easements. All right, and the same here. I haven't dealt with this a lot, but it's something that I think that's going to be growing here in the state of Oklahoma, keeping those acres from being developed and keeping them as ag land. Eligible partners include Indian tribes, state and local governments, non-governmental agencies that have farmland or grassland protection programs. And so, again, I haven't dealt with this a whole lot, but it is something that we have to offer here in Oklahoma. And with that, that's all I have. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Cleon, and thank you again, Maddie. Please put any questions you have in the chat if you have them, and I'm going to launch the poll real quickly as well. Please take a few minutes to fill out that poll as well.